Hello and welcome to another classic edition of Lucky Hawk Talks. I'm your host Lucky Hawk, and today's episode comes from May 30th of 2013, where I spoke to classic TV legend Richard Herd. If you don't recognize the name, you recognize the face from shows like V, Star Trek The Next Generation, Quantum Leap, MASH, Starsky and Hutch, and The A-Team, to name a few. But he's most recognizable as Mr. Wilhelm, George Costanza's boss on the hit NBC show Seinfeld. I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Herd about his career in acting, as well as his time with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So sit back, listen up, and try to learn something from this TV legend. You've appeared in countless television and film productions over the past 60 years. How did your career in show business begin?
Well, it's a long time ago in Brockton, Massachusetts. In the 7th or 8th grade, I heard them rehearsing a production of HMS Pinafore. Got me all stirred up. So I signed up for the singing group, and I signed up for the fife and drum corps. So I got into music real early on. Then I moved we moved back into Boston. I went to Boston English High School. While I was there, I was backup drummer in the band, and we used to rehearse there at night. There was a group of us. We used to play weekend dates, like we'd play proms and rallies and weddings, to pick up a few extra bucks. And there was some people there, some college people going to Emerson College, Boston University, Harvard, places like that, and they were rehearsing a radio show out in Quincy, Massachusetts. I bumped into them a few times. They invited me to audition, and I did, and they put me on their radio show. So I did a bunch of radio. Then I went over to the Boston Summer Theater. They had a theater where they brought stars in. They did 8 to 10 weeks. I went over there, and I auditioned. And I got an apprenticeship, and that was from Lee Falk and Al Capp. They're both cartoonists. One of them did Phantom, and the other one did Little Abner. So I came back a second year, and I continued they had classes, and you apprenticed, and they gave me some small parts. So between my junior and senior year in high school, I got my equity card, which made me a junior member of Actors Equity. And when I got out of high school, I went to BU for a short period, went down to New York, got a job. I was on the road. My mom gave me a call, had to come back, had to go into the Army, so I went into the Army in 1953. I did my tour, I came out, I went to New York, and I studied, and I starved, and I studied, and I starved. I started getting work, and I slowly worked myself up from small parts to middling parts to some major roles. Did 30 years in the theater in New York and on the road, and came out west here about 25, 30 years ago. They kept bringing me out here to do pictures and television, and finally, when they offered me T.J. Hooker with Bill Shatner, I stayed on that for 2.5 years and decided to move out here. And ever since then, I've done over 300 TV shows, about 41 films, over 100 plays, and I'm fortunate. I continue to work. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of struggle. I wouldn't advise anyone to go into the business at this particular time. I was very, very fortunate because when I went in, there was plenty of work. But now we've lost 50% of the work. So there are very, very few opportunities for new people coming in because there's no more summer stock. Those are training grounds. And there's no more road shows. Those are training grounds. And shows become very, very expensive. And a lot of the films and things here in Hollywood are so expensive, they go to right-to-work states, or they go out of the country altogether. Mm-hmm. So, does that kind of answer your question?
Oh, yes, sir, definitely. You and Arnold Schwarzenegger shared the same big screen debut with Hercules.
New York City was called Hercules in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't speak the language too well. It was the very first film he ever did, and they called him Arnold Strong. His co-star was Arnold, what was his name? Funny guys. Arnold, whatever. There were a lot of us. I had a couple of days on it. I played kind of a master of ceremonies, and he was a good guy, and as you know, that's the great American story there.
Yeah.
Here's this man, comes to this country, and ends up being governor of the state of California. He was a good guy. And then when they re-released it, when he became a movie star, the guy that kept it and owned it made a fortune. He re-released it, made a fortune, gave it a new title. It was called Hercules Goes Bananas, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. So there you go.
With your roles on shows like V and Sequest and Quantum Leap and Star Trek, of course, you're a bit of a staple in the science fiction community.
Well, what happened to them, you do a little bit of this, you do a little bit of that, and after 40, 50, 60 years, you look back and you say, my God, I do have a science fiction background, but I also have a very strong, China Syndrome, Private Benjamin, Onion Field, All the President's Men, a lot of that, but I really enjoy doing the science fiction. It gives you an opportunity to, I'm glad I had my classic training. It gives you an opportunity to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily get a chance to do in weekly episodic television. And my experience with Michael Dorn on Birthright 1 and 2 was a great experience. And my experience as Tom's dad, Admiral Paris, on Star Trek, including the final one, I've worked with 5 of the captains. That was a wonderful experience. And as you know, in Quantum Leap, I did 2 of those. And that was Scott Bakula. And then also I worked, with Patrick on Next Gen. So it's been good, And if they call me tomorrow, I'd be happy to do my tap dance and win again, play a Klingon, or whatever they ask, because I always had a good time. Met a lot of wonderful people. A lot of them I still see to this day, especially the guy that was the head of the makeup for the whole thing, Michael Westmore. Wonderful, wonderful man who's finishing up his book, as a matter of fact.
I've heard that you'll be reviving your role for the fan film Star Trek Renegades that's directed by Tim Russ.
But what I did do last season, though, I had played Betty White's boyfriend on The Golden Girls. Then I played her husband on 2 episodes of Everwood. And then I got cast last season. I did 10 episodes for a new show called Off Their Rockers. And yes, I was just speaking to Walter Koenig yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I will be revising my role on Renegades, which I think they're hoping to start sometime in July or August.
Many non-sci-fi fans know you from your SAG Award-winning role as George Costanza's boss, Mr. Wilhelm.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Being on that, it was just such a pleasure. I recurred on that for 2 seasons. I did 14 episodes, and I had such a good time. The only thing you had to be on Seinfeld was to be perfect. And the wonderful thing I liked about it is we had a live audience for every show we did. We rehearsed them 3 or 4 days, and they had bleachers there for about 300 people, and it was like doing a small play. And Larry David and the gang, they were great people to work with, so that was a pleasure. And I found out that many, many Star Trek and B and Sequest and people of that sort all love Seinfeld as well, because all of the shows, the sci-fi and a lot of the other shows, they keep being rediscovered by one generation after another because they go into syndication or they're played on the Sci-Fi Channel. So you have these very young people coming up when you do a convention that know you from these shows. So that's why I go to, let me see, I go to Creation, which is a big Star Trek show. I go to that show in August. I'm going to do Monsterpalooza because I did a handful of horror flicks, not real bad ones, but, sci-fi horror flicks. Mm-hmm. And then I'm hoping to be at Dragon Con next season. I would like very much to come back there. I don't think I've been there for 5 or 6 years. You ever go there yourself?
I have never been. I've always wanted to go, but I've never been.
Well, I think it's in September.
Yeah. I might have to try to make it this year.
You should treat yourself. You could write a story about it. You could go around and interview a whole lot of people.
Yeah, I really need to. As you said earlier, you've appeared on Golden Girls and MASH and other comedies. Do you have a preference towards either comedy or drama?
Well, it all depends how. I like parts in comedy and drama that kind of shakers, people that have action, that make things happen. Like being George's boss, even though it was silly, I was somebody who, did something, who took action, tried to get something done. And even on Quantum Leap, I was trying to invent a time machine, trying to get something done. And it seems to me I played a lot of powerful figures, presidents, vice presidents, heads of corporation. I played Omar Bradley, the commander-in-chief of the Normandy invasion. All of those things. And then on the comedy side, it's a relief. All actors, a lot of people think you play one role. But all actors, at least when I was going into the business, all actors were equipped to play and to understand how to play comedy, light comedy, farce, tragedy, comic tragedy. That way, how to do Shakespeare, how to do modernistic, how to do Chekhov. These were all the things we were brought up to do. And the kids today, unless they're coming out of a university or college, basically study scenes from movies, and they don't get a proper grounding to have a proper technique to really, seek a character and understand it, especially if they get lucky and get a few jobs, and all of a sudden they get another job and they don't know what to do with it because they don't have the training in the background, because they never bothered to go to class. Yeah. That's really a shame. I tell all the kids that ask me, I tell them to go to Seattle or to go to Chicago, stay away from LA and New York, and because they get great theaters in Chicago and Seattle, and you can learn your craft and get a part-time job, and you can come back to New York or LA and you can have a resume. Mm-hmm. If you go to New York or LA, it's almost impossible to get a job. You just waste your time unless you have a background or some experience. Nobody will take you. They're letting people go out here, the agents. They just can't handle the people, and there's not enough money left for them to even, a lot of them are going out of business, a lot of the agents. They can't support or pay the rent because there's no work. Yeah. So you got to really, really be good and dedicated and obsessed. And I really tell people to finish up college, maybe get a master's, and if things don't go well, you can go out and teach drama. Go try to join a drama department somewhere, but get an education.
On top of acting, you're also a talented painter.
I study painting, and I do it. It's very peaceful for me to work on painting, and I've taken welding lessons.
Who are some of your influences?
Well, I would say de Kooning. I would say Turner. Also Picasso. There's so many, that also I like Beckmann, the German expressionistic painter. Many styles. I go mostly, I like impressionistic work. Mm-hmm. I'm really not a traditionalist, and I don't care for people who, go out and take a picture and then paint a picture of what they saw. I think, we have cameras for that. I think people should, if they want to do that, fine, but I'd like to see what they see as opposed to what the camera sees. What the scene tells them, how they feel about it. And that's more or less, a green tree doesn't have to be green. A blue sky doesn't have to be blue. In other words, to have the freedom of expression to let your feeling about the creative process lead you where it may go. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure. I've been in a lot of shows. I've been fortunate to have been best of shows. And I'm fortunate now. I mean, I didn't get in it to sell paintings, but I'm in shows now, and I've been invited, and people are beginning to purchase my work. So that pays for the paint brushes, and it pays for the canvases. By the way, I want to put in here, and I hope that you'll put it in.
Certainly.
That if anyone wants to contact me, they can send me an email, or they can look at my artwork or my poetry or my cards by going to www.richardhurd.com, and I would hope that you would put that in there so that they can get in touch with me.
Do you have any other upcoming projects that you would like to speak about?
Well, there are things out there. There's always something going on. There's an independent film that may or may not happen. There's a pilot that may or may not happen. I'm working on a reading now with some wonderful people in a play that was written years ago called The Visit. There's there's always something going on. It's important. After a while, people just call you and you're going to do things, or you still have to go in. 50% of my work is offered to me. Mm-hmm. The other 50% you have to go in and audition for. And I only go in if I really, really want to do it. I have to have a burning desire now because, I've been very, very fortunate and I'm very, very grateful. But I'm at a point now where I only want to do what I feel like doing. And if I have to audition for it, so be it. Mm-hmm. I have a great deal of pleasure working with young people in independent films where there's hardly any money at all, but I do it because I like the script and I like the part. To me, the part is the most important thing. So it keeps the brain alive, and my wife is a very fine actress, and she and I have done many things together. So, and we have many friends within the business, both here and in New York. And as a matter of fact, we're talking right now. I have a great friend that's sitting in my lap. It's my little 12-pound puppy called, what's that little girl's name? Yes, she's a sweetheart. We had our little Cisco before that, and we have Archie, and we have our sweet new puppy that we got at a shelter. She's sitting warmly in my lap. Do you have any pets?
I do. I have 3 dogs myself. So.
You do?
Yes.
Oh my God! All different sizes.
They're all medium sized, but they're 3 different breeds. So.
That's what we have. She's a mixed breed. She's a part Chihuahua and part Dingo. Her name is Coco. She's a brindle-colored dog.
I forgot to mention too. You do a voiceover in one of my favorite games, Fallout New Vegas. How did you get into?
Oh yeah. I've got a bunch of those. That I've done. Fallout in Vegas. What's your question?
How did you get into voice acting?
Well, people hear your voice and they call you, and you go in, you do an audition, and they call you, and you go in and you lay down the track. You get a special agent. You see, that's a special agent. You have there are all sorts of agents that you're involved with. You're involved with a theatrical agent. That's for film and theater. Then you're involved with a commercial agent. That's for on-camera commercials. Then you're involved with a voiceover agent who calls you for voiceover work. So, you get all these people that are hopefully looking out for you when they can and, have your best thoughts in mind. But I enjoy them. I enjoy doing, because I started in radio as a young man back in Boston. I did a bunch of it in New York, and I still do it out here. This group called the California Artist Radio Theater, and a lot of their work is on NPR and Sirius Radio, and it's all professionally done. And I might do 5 or 6 of those a year, full radio shows. And matter of fact, we did one, Bill Shatner and myself, we did one a while back on a Ray Bradbury story called Leviathan. That's out on. It's out as a CD now. So that was fun doing that. I have great deal of pleasure. You can people, when I was growing up, you had an imagination. You could listen to the radio and imagine what was going on, as opposed to television coming along and telling you what was going on.
All right, there you have it, folks. Richard Hurd. What a guy. He spoke to me at great length, even after the interview ended. He took the time to give me some really good heartfelt advice about my career and life in general. Such a nice, awesome, sweet dude. If you enjoyed this interview, check out all the rest of the interviews on the channel. And if that's not enough for you, go to amazon.com/author/LuckyHawk and you'll find every interview I've ever done in written format. It's free if you have Amazon Kindle Unlimited. If you don't have that, they're only 99 cents per volume, so it's not too bad. But anyhow, this has been Lucky Hawk Talks. I'm Lucky Hawk, and I will talk to you later.